Have you ever felt like someone was standing just behind you close enough to breathe, but not close enough to see? Most people don't believe in ghosts, not until something reminds them that belief doesn't matter, that there are things older than fear itself, waiting in the quiet places where we stop paying attention. A door that closes too softly, a whisper in a room you thought was empty, a handprint on the mirror that doesn't match yours. You tell yourself it's nothing, drafts, plumbing, imagination, but sometimes the air gets too still, and in that stillness, something listens back. The people in these stories didn't go looking for proof. They just lived their lives until the walls between the living and the dead grew thin enough to hear through. These aren't legends or campfire tales. These are true ghost encounters told by the people who still wake up in the dark and swear they're not alone. Because when a ghost wants to be seen, it doesn't need your belief, only your attention. And now, you've already given it. Story 1. The Woman in Room 313. I used to work as a night receptionist at a small roadside hotel in upstate New York. It wasn't fancy 30 rooms, 2 floors, one dimly lit lobby that always smelled faintly like bleach and old coffee. Most nights were uneventful. The sound of the vending machine, cars on the highway, the hum of fluorescent lights above the desk. But there was one room we didn't rent out anymore, Room 313. The door was still there, the key still hung on the board behind the counter, but the manager had told me on my first day, don't check anyone in there, ever. He never explained why, just said the plumbing didn't work, and the wiring was bad, but once you've worked enough night shifts, you can tell when someone's lying to you. The first time I noticed something off, it was about 2 weeks in. All the guests were asleep, and I was walking the hallway on the second floor. The air felt wrong, heavy, like the hotel was holding its breath. As I passed 313, I heard something from inside. It wasn't footsteps or a voice. It was humming, soft, low, a woman's voice repeating the same tune over and over again. I froze outside the door. The handle was turning slowly, even though the room was supposed to be empty. I called out, "Hello, front desk." The humming stopped. For a few seconds, there was silence. Then 3 soft knocks came from the other side of the door. Knock, knock, knock. I stepped back. Every hair on my arm stood up. The knocks didn't sound angry. They sounded patient. The next morning, I told my manager. He just stared at me for a long time before saying, "She used to do that, before." When I asked what he meant, he shook his head. She checked in alone. 2 years ago. Room 313. Never checked out. He said they found her after 3 days still sitting in the chair by the window, staring at the parking lot, the TV playing static. After that, maintenance sealed the vents and turned off the power to that room, but every few months, the light under the door flickers back on. One night, a guest complained that someone was watching TV too loud on the second floor. When I checked the cameras, every room was dark except 313. The screen glowed pale blue, and for a split second, I saw a shape sitting perfectly still in the chair by the window. I went up, but when I got there, the door was slightly open. The air smelled like lavender and static. The chair was empty. And on the TV, the snow-white image of the parking lot shimmered faintly as if being filmed from somewhere inside. I don't work there anymore, but sometimes, when I drive past that stretch of highway, I still glance at the second floor and swear I see that faint blue light flicker in the dark. If you ever stay at a motel that skips room 313, don't ask why. Just hope she isn't waiting for you to check in. Story 2. The House at the End of Waverly Road. When I was 16, I lived in a small rural town where everyone knew everyone else. There was a road just outside the edge of town, Waverly Road, a long, winding strip of cracked pavement lined with dead trees and silence. At the very end of that road stood an abandoned house, 2 stories, peeling paint, windows covered in dust so thick they looked painted over. People said an old couple used to live there, that the husband passed away, and the wife never left. Kids dared each other to go up and touch the front door. Most of us never did. But one night, my friends and I decided to drive there. We told ourselves it was just for fun, a teenage ghost hunt, a way to feel brave. It was almost midnight when we pulled up. The air was still, no wind, no sound. Even the crickets were silent. As we got out of the car, I noticed the front door was slightly open, just enough to see a sliver of the hallway inside. Someone had left a lamp on a small yellow glow that shouldn't have had power. My friend Caleb laughed, said it was just reflection, but when he stepped onto the porch, the light went out. We all froze. Then, from inside the house, we heard footsteps moving slowly across the wooden floor. Heavy, deliberate, too heavy for someone our age. We ran back to the car, but the engine wouldn't start. It clicked over and over, and the headlights dimmed like the battery was dying. Then, from the upstairs window, a light flickered on. Behind the glass, a figure stood perfectly still, small, hunched, wearing something that looked like a nightgown. I swear I saw her raise her hand and press it against the window. Caleb shouted, and finally the car roared to life. We sped down the road, not speaking until the house was nothing but a black dot in the rearview mirror. For weeks after, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that faint glow in the upstairs window. Sometimes, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and for just a second, I'd think I heard the sound of slow footsteps crossing a wooden floor. Years later, after I'd moved away, I came back to visit family. Waverly Road was still there, but the house wasn't. It had burned down years ago, they said. No one knew how. But when they cleared the lot, the fire chief found something strange, a single electric lamp, still intact, its bulb faintly glowing in the ash. I've driven by that empty lot a few times since. There's nothing there now. No house, no road sign. But sometimes, if you go late enough, you can see a pale light through the trees, as if someone left a lamp on, waiting for visitors. Story 3. The Voice Beneath the Lake. When I was in college, my roommate Ethan loved fishing. Every weekend, he'd drive out to this small, isolated lake about an hour from campus. It wasn't on any map, just a widening of a forgotten creek behind old farmland. No cell service, no cabins, no lights at night. He said that's what he liked about it, the quiet, the stillness. I went with him once, just once. The lake looked dead, the water dark and unmoving, surrounded by pine trees that leaned in like they were eavesdropping. We parked by the shore, set up camp, and by sunset, the world felt like it had been erased. When night came, the air went completely still. No wind, no bugs, no ripples on the surface. The water looked like black glass. Ethan was talking about something classes, a girl, maybe when he stopped mid-sentence. "Did you hear that?" he asked. It was faint, but I heard it too, a soft, echoing voice coming from across the lake. It sounded like someone calling for help, but the words were stretched, like they were underwater. We called out, our voices bouncing back in strange, warped echoes, then silence again. After a minute, Ethan turned on his flashlight and aimed it across the water. The beam reached halfway before fading into the fog. For a split second, I thought I saw something moving, a figure standing just at the edge of the trees. We decided to check it out. We took the small rowboat, the oars creaking in the dark. Halfway across, The air turned colder. The water started to ripple, but there was no wind. Then, the voice came again, closer this time. It sounded like a woman, whispering just beneath the surface. Her tone wasn't pleading anymore. It was rhythmic, like she was repeating a name. Ethan leaned over the side with his flashlight. The beam hit something pale beneath the water, a face, a human face staring up. He dropped the light, and it vanished into the depths. The boat started to rock hard, as if something massive was moving underneath us. We rowed back without saying a word. When we reached the shore, Ethan was shaking. He kept looking at the lake like it was staring back. We drove home in silence. I never went back, but Ethan did once. He said he needed to see if what we saw was real. That was 3 days before he disappeared. His car was found by the same lake, doors unlocked, keys still in the ignition. They dragged the water for a week, but never found a body. Months later, during spring thaw, a fisherman called the sheriff about something caught in his net. It was a small flashlight, muddy, cracked, still faintly glowing beneath the lens. When the sheriff turned it over, he swore he heard something, a woman's voice, whispering a name. It was Ethan's. Story 4. The tenant in room 4B. When I first moved into the building, the landlord warned me not to worry about noises coming from the 4th floor. He said the old pipes made strange sounds, groaning, knocking, whispering in the walls. I didn't think much of it. The building was a run-down complex on the edge of the city, the kind of place where the elevator hummed like it was thinking about braking. I lived in room 4A, right next to room 4B, a unit that, according to the landlord, had been empty for years. For the first few nights, everything was fine, quiet, almost peaceful. Then, around 2A, one morning, I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway, slow, measured, deliberate. They stopped right outside my door. Then, I heard a key slide into the lock of room 4B. The door opened, and then, silence. I got up, peered through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but I could see light leaking out from under 4B's door, a soft yellow glow like a lamp. The next day, I asked the landlord if someone had moved in. He frowned and shook his head, said no one had been inside that apartment for years. He even showed me the keys rusted, untouched. That night, the sounds came again. Footsteps, whispering, the soft creak of furniture being moved. I knocked once, just to prove to myself I wasn't scared. The noises stopped instantly. I pressed my ear against the wall. From inside, I heard breathing, slow, human. I slept with the lights on. A few days later, when I got home from work, there was an envelope taped to my door. No name, no return address, just a single word on the front, written in shaky pen, "Help." I opened it. Inside was a faded Polaroid photo, a woman standing in the hallway, smiling, holding a set of keys. Behind her was my door, room 4A. When I showed it to the landlord, his face went pale. He said the woman's name was Clara, a tenant who used to live in 4B years ago. She'd vanished one winter night. Police never found a body, just her belongings, and a single Polaroid camera left on the table. He changed the subject quickly after that, but I could tell he didn't want to talk about her. That night, I heard the door to 4B open again. This time, I didn't move, didn't breathe. I watched through the peephole as someone stepped into the hallway. It was her, the woman from the photo. Same clothes, same smile, but her head tilted slightly, like she was listening for something. She turned toward my door and whispered, "Can you let me in? I used to live here." Her voice was soft, kind, but behind it, there was something else, a faint echo, like two voices speaking at once. I backed away, heart pounding. The doorknob turned once, twice, then stopped. By morning, she was gone, but the photo I'd left on the counter, it had changed. Now, the woman wasn't standing in the hallway anymore. She was standing inside my apartment, right behind the camera. Story 5. The mirror left in the attic. When my grandmother passed away, I was the one who inherited her old farmhouse. It had been empty for nearly a decade, a place of peeling wallpaper, silent rooms, and the kind of stillness that doesn't feel peaceful, just watchful. The first few days were uneventful. I cleaned, fixed windows, replaced light bulbs. But when I reached the attic, I found something strange. There, covered in a white sheet and dust thick as snow, stood a tall, ornate mirror. It wasn't like the others in the house. This one was carved with symbols I didn't recognize, its surface dark like tarnished silver. I tried to lift it, but it felt heavier than it should have been, like it didn't want to move. So I left it. That night, while unpacking downstairs, I heard a faint creak from the ceiling, then another, like footsteps, slowly pacing across the attic floor. I told myself it was just the wood settling, but around midnight, I caught something strange in the reflection of the living room window. Behind me, a flicker of movement, as if someone had walked past the attic door. The next morning, I decided to cover the mirror completely, this time with a thick tarp. But when I went upstairs, the white sheet I'd used the day before was gone. In its place was a folded photograph, tucked neatly against the glass. It showed the mirror itself, and standing in front of it me, but I hadn't taken any photo. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air upstairs had grown colder. Every time I passed the attic stairs, I could feel something behind the door, listening. Then, just past 3 a.m., I heard my grandmother's voice, soft, shaky, but unmistakable, calling my name. It came from the attic. I opened the door. The air felt heavy, like I was walking into water. The mirror stood uncovered again, and in the reflection, I saw her. She looked older, her skin gray, her eyes hollow, but she was smiling that same way she used to when she baked cookies on Sundays. She lifted a hand and pressed it against the glass. I don't know why, but I reached out too. The surface was freezing cold, and for a split second, I swear I felt fingers on the other side. I pulled away, and the reflection changed. Now, I wasn't in it anymore. Just her, standing in my place, looking out. The next morning, the mirror was gone, just an outline in the dust where it had stood. I called the junk collector who'd helped me move furniture earlier that week. He said he never saw any mirror in the attic. But sometimes, when I pass by a window at night, I catch a reflection that doesn't belong to me, an older woman, standing just behind my shoulder, smiling. Story 6. The train that arrived at 3:17. I worked the night shift at a factory on the outskirts of the city. Every day, I took the same train home, an old commuter line that rattled through empty streets, its fluorescent lights flickering like they couldn't decide whether to stay on. It was the 3:17 a.m. train that always unsettled me, not because it was late, it was always exactly on time, but because, every night, it carried one passenger who shouldn't exist. The first time I noticed him, I thought I was tired. He was standing by the door, wearing a long coat and hat pulled low over his eyes, the kind of figure that belonged in old photographs, not on a modern train. I looked away for a moment. When I glanced back, he was gone. The next night, the same thing happened. 3:17 a.m. He was there, silent, still, watching. I asked a fellow night shift worker about it. He laughed. Probably someone just catching the late train. Man, don't let it freak you out. But it did. One night, I stayed awake, waiting, camera phone ready. I thought I could prove it was just some stranger. When the train rolled into the empty station, he was there, as always. But this time, when I raised my phone, he smiled. Not a normal smile. Wide, too wide. And his eyes were wrong, hollow, black, like the light couldn't reach them. I froze. He tilted his head. The train's doors hissed closed, and he stepped off the platform, but I swear he didn't move toward me. He moved sideways, sliding along the edge of the tracks, then vanished entirely. I didn't sleep on the train for weeks. Every 3:17 a.m., I arrived early, waiting at the platform with my heart in my throat. No one ever appeared for the next hour, just empty benches and the hum of electricity. Then, one night, I got on the train a little late. I had missed my usual 3:17 a.m. ride by 5 minutes. The next train arrived, and the entire car was empty except him, sitting in my usual seat, watching me. I tried to speak. No words came out. I sat across from him, paralyzed. The lights flickered. He leaned forward, whispered, "You missed it." The doors opened at the next stop. I ran, never looked back. But the following night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo taken from inside the train. My seat was empty except the figure, sitting there, smiling that impossible smile. Every night since, I check the schedule, 3:17 a.m., always, and I never take that train. Some people say he's just a ghost of someone who died on the tracks. Others say he's a warning. I don't know. But if you ever see a train at 3:17 a.m. and a man in a long coat sits across from you, don't try to speak. Don't move. He's waiting for something, and if he whispers your name, you'll know you've missed it. The world you know isn't always what it seems. Those empty hallways, blinking office lights, silent stairwells, and late-night trains, they exist in the in-between, where reality stretches just a little too thin and time hesitates. These stories weren't about monsters, ghosts, or ghouls. They were about the quiet spaces we overlook, the moments where normal rules no longer apply. A flickering light, a door that shouldn't exist, or a train arriving at exactly 3:17 a.m. It's there that the world holds its breath and waits to see who notices. You've just walked through 7 true horror stories, each one a glimpse into the liminal spaces that surround us every day. Remember them the next time you wander alone in an office after hours, or hear a whisper in an empty hallway, or see a shadow where none should be. These are the places that linger long after the lights come on, the rooms you can never unsee, the doors you might wish you had ignored. Thank you for listening, and as you return to your world, take a moment to look around. Because sometimes, the scariest things aren't abandoned at all. They're just waiting for someone to notice that time has stopped moving. And when you do, don't be surprised if it starts moving again.